Hello, ChessGeeks. This is Ravi here, and today I'm going to show you an offbeat line of Sicilian variation. This variation is called Sicilian Sveshnikov, and if you are not familiar, the move order is like this. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, and the characteristic moves which defines Sicilian Sveshnikov is e5. So generally in this position, if the knight on d4 is being attacked by the e5 pawn and the knight on d4 goes to the b5 square. So if you see, when black plays the e5 move, it gives away the d5 square. The d5 square is one of the most thematic squares for white in the Sicilian defense. But in this case, the main move is knight to b5, knight d to b5. But if let's say you are playing, you are encountering Sicilian, and you do not know this move order, you do not know how to play the Sveshnikov, then knight from d to b5, you can avoid this move, and instead of that, you can play knight to b3. So knight to b3 is also a very safe move, and I can assure you, you can definitely win from here as well. So you may not be getting a large, like advantage in the opening, but this is definitely a worthy move to be considered. The next move is bishop to b4. Bishop to b4 pins the knight, and black threatens to take the e4 square. Bishop d3. Very simple move, development move, and you don't have to even remember this move order as well. Now, d5. Black opens up the center. This d5 attacks this e4 pawn, and after the capture, black knight takes the d4 square and pins the knight on c3 again. So in order to remove the pin, the white plays bishop to d2, and after that castle, knight to c3, bishop takes c3, and bishop to d6. So you see that both white and black are well developed, but not completely. And from here on, you can play the game as usual. Okay, queen to e2. The best move here is queen to h5 to so that white can capture and threaten this h7 pawn, which can be met by g6 from black. But in this case, I am playing queen to e2. Black plays queen to g5, and at some point he wants to play the bishop to h3 and threatens for a checkmate. Or in case if pawn moves to g3, then bishop takes rook. Okay, so I don't want to happen. I don't want that to happen in future. So I play g3 in order to avoid that. G3, and now bishop to g4. Once bishop to g4, queen to e4. Queen to e4 along with this bishop, it forms a battery to give a checkmate on the s7 square. Black prevents that with g6. Okay, bishop d2 threatens the queen, and queen to h5. Now queen to h5 and this bishop on g4, it is occupying the f3 square. So I don't want that to happen, because the f3 square, if the bishop occupies at some point, then I may have a continuous checkmate threat of queen coming to h3, and then queen giving me a checkmate on g2. So I want to avoid that, and I played f3. And this is absolutely an okay move here. Okay, f3, and now bishop attacks the queen. Queen comes back to e2, and now bishop comes to h3 and threatens the rook. Rook f to e1 and a5. Now, why a5 from black? Okay, the objective of black is that this bishop on d6 is doing nothing. The bishop wants to give a check from c5 and give a check to the white king. But currently, the c5 square is being holded by this knight here. So black tries to remove the knight from its square, from this b3 square, and white tries to avoid the plan of black. So white is a4 to stop the black pawn from threatening on a4. Okay, bishop drops back to c7 so that it can give a check from the b6 square now. Okay, I prevent that. I play bishop to e3. Okay, rook to rook f to e8, and I play queen to f2. Why do I want to play queen to f2? You may see that in future. And this rook is coming right now, rook a to d8. So let's analyze the position here for some time. So if you see here, from both black and white, they are both well developed. Now, what is white threatening and what is black going to do? In which part of the board should the play be considered? Now, if you see both the queens of black and the queen of white, they are both on the king side. So that means, please remember that this theme, that in the middle game, wherever the queens will be, that part of the board will be more subjected to attack. So if the king is on, so if the queen is on the king side, that means, if let's say white's queen is on the king side, that means white wants to attack on the king side. If black queen is also on the queen side, that means black wants to attack on the queen side. But in this case, both the queens are on the king side. That means both white and black, they want to do something on the king side. Black wants to, take some advantage on the white side of the, like on the king side of the board, and white wants to stop it. So if you see, none of the pieces can go for a sacrifice, or none of the pieces can go for any kind of threats. So, but white has a very subtle threat, and that threat will be revealed in the next move. So the best move for black in this position is to play f5, because black only has this queen on h5 and the bishop on this h3, and the bishop on c7 is eyeing on the king side of the king side of white. But this pawn on e5 is preventing that. The knight on c6, it doesn't have too many good squares to go, and nothing it can really do too much. And both the rooks, they are still they are on the back side, they are on the back ranks, and they are still they need to occupy the central files. So the best move of black from this position is to play f5, and you will just come to know on the on my next move. So white in this position, he thinks for a long time, because this is a rapid game of 10 minutes. He plays the move g4. Now this move g4 is white knew that he is going to attack the queen, and the bishop has to take the pawn. Because if the bishop doesn't take the pawn, then the black queen will be trapped. The bishop takes, and with the pawn it takes the bishop, and king takes g4, and then king 2, and then queen to g2. Stop the threat from the queen. The queen to h4. Okay, I give bishop to g5. I give a skewer to the queen and the rook, and bishop to b6 check, and king to h1. Queen goes to h5, and I take the rook. Bishop takes rook, and rook takes bishop, and I occupy this rook on the center with rook a to d1. Now black moves the pawn ahead, that is on e4. Black moves e4. Now when you are playing this kind of uh, game, in a rapid game, be sure that before you take any kind of material, be very much cautious. The pawn comes to e4. If I take with the queen, then that is okay. But if I mistakenly take with the bishop, then rook takes rook will happen. And if you see, the black queen is also eyeing on the d1 square. So I'll be down a rook. So white doesn't take the pawn, and instead he plays bishop to e2, which is also a good move and a safe move. Okay, rook takes rook, rook has to take, and I take with the bishop. Bishop takes rook, and queen comes to d5, and I now take this pawn on e4. Black doesn't want to exchange the queens, because he knows if he exchange the queens, then he would be one piece down. Bishop to f3, and bishop to f2. It threatens the rook. rook to d1, king to g7. I want to exchange my queen, queen to g4, queen to e5, bishop takes knight. So I just go, I want to go for simplifications without wasting any further time. Pawn takes bishop, rook to f1, then bishop drops back, queen to g2, bishop to c7. So h2 is being threatened. So my queen has to keep an eye on this h2 square constantly. So I give the queen to f2 because it threatens the f7 pawn as well, and also it keeps the eye on h2 as well. Okay, check, queen f3, queen drops back to e6. Now knight to d4, queen to d7, queen f6 check, king g8, knight to knight to f3, f6 to prevent the knight from coming to g5, pawn rook to e1, bishop to d6, uh, queen to d4, and c5 being threatened, not a problem. Queen to d5, and again queen drops back to c7. But now by this time I'm already like several, like I will say uh, this up, like points up, or I can say from analysis of Stockfish. Stockfish says that I'm a huge way, I have a huge advantage. So there is nothing that black can really do here. So f5, queen e6, and f4. So this is almost near the end of the game, and you see queen to g8 checkmate. I hope so this game doesn't I will say gives you a very much strategical like knowledge, but I will say that this is definitely a good opening to consider, and how to play in this opening you can get an example by looking into this game. Okay, thank you very much.